Welcome to Employment Law This Week. I'm George Whipple. Our top story, federal Me Too legislation aimed at public companies. The Sunlight and Workplace Harassment Act, introduced in both the House and the Senate in February, would require public companies to report information related to harassment, discrimination settlements, and complaints in their SEC filings. Reports would have to include the number and dollar amount of settlements, the average length of time that it takes to resolve complaints, and the total number of harassment and discrimination complaints. In addition, the bill would require information about an employer's efforts to prevent future acts of unlawful harassment, discrimination, or sexual abuse. Beth McManus has more.
The interesting thing about this bill in terms of its broad and sweeping scope is the fact that it applies not just to sexual harassment, but to claims of discrimination based on a broad variety of categories like sex, age, race, national origin, military service status, genetic information, so it's a huge range. Even if this bill doesn't pass in its current form, change is on the horizon with respect to sexual harassment, settlements, and disclosure in general. In fact, the recently passed Republican-sponsored Tax Cuts and Jobs Act prevents employers from taking a tax deduction if they have a sexual harassment or sexual abuse allegation settlement that is subject to a non-disclosure agreement. I think we'll continue to see a movement towards preventing non-disclosure agreements in those types of cases moving forward.
The NLRB has asked the D.C. Circuit to reopen its review of the Browning-Ferris joint employer test. As we reported last week, the board has vacated its December 2017 decision in Highbrand, which had overturned the Browning-Ferris indirect control standard and readopted a direct control test for joint employment. If the court revisits the case, it can uphold or reject the test in Browning-Ferris, or it can send the case back to the NLRB, who could again replace the Browning-Ferris standard with a standard like the one in Highbrand. Clarity for Massachusetts employers. The Massachusetts Attorney General recently published guidance on the state's upcoming pay equity law. The long-awaited guidance answers frequently asked questions, defines important terms like covered employers, and details permissible variations in pay, among other topics. The Attorney General's office will partner with business associations on webinars and events in the coming weeks to give employers more information on the law, which goes into effect on July 1, 2018. The DOL launches a new program to get employees PAID. With the Wage and Hour Division's Payroll Audit Independent Determination, or PAID program, employers who choose to participate will self-audit their overtime and minimum wage practices. The employers submit their audits and, if the division agrees, pay employees any wages owed to them. Those who self-report can avoid heavy fines and work with the Wage and Hour Division to correct any mistakes. The DOL will implement the pilot program nationwide for about 6 months before evaluating. And finally, our tip of the week. Ann Rhodes, president of People Inc., is here with some advice on best practices for building a values-based organization.
Creating a values-based organization begins with defining who you want to be by blueprinting the values. And along with that, you also blueprint the behaviors behind each of the values. Secondly, you also then start hiring people who have not only the competencies you're looking for, but the values. Next, you have to think about, does every employee brand your organization around the values the way you want them to? In other words, are they mirroring what you've defined as your brand? Because your employees are your brand. And last but not least, great organizations that are values-based have a continuous discipline model that is all about everyone being engaged in achieving their goals.
Thanks, Ann. That's it for Employment Law This Week. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.